I spent a lot of time thinking about social policy. I spent a lot of time thinking about policies that would be ideal. One of the policies that I spent a lot of time advocating for is around ways to help low-income families build wealth. So one of the policies that I spent a lot of time researching and thinking about and speaking to policymakers about is child savings accounts. So making sure that low-income families, or really all families, can have some resources and some incentives and some opportunities to set aside money for their children's future. Initially, that's usually educational purposes, but once the child is older, maybe to buy a home or start a business. In Singapore, this exists. So there's accounts for the children that can be used for their development when they're young, and then that goes to kind of college savings account as they get older. And then once they go to college and get a job, it goes to a retirement account. So it's a lifelong series of accounts. That doesn't exist in the U.S. right now, but I think that sort of policy would be helpful because no matter what types of families children are born into, it would help them know that their communities care about them, their country cares about them, and that they have something set aside for their futures so that even if they start out in difficult economic circumstances, they have something that they can use to build a future for themselves. So those are the sort of policies I shoot for. They have states that have funded child savings accounts, and I've supported and helped to provide data to help the decisions that those usually state legislatures make. But outside of kind of going for an ideal policy, the policies that impact families that I work with are things like EITC, Earned Income Tax Credit. It's a way to help families that don't earn a lot of money to get money back through the tax system to support their families. And so one of the things some of the people that I work with and some of the communities I work with do is when people get, let's say, a lump sum of $2,000 or $3,000, don't just spend it or don't just use it quickly, but save some of it. Use it for asset building purposes. Use it for things that are going to make a difference for you and your family over time. In 2005, I was invited to give testimony in front of a congressional subcommittee in Washington, D.C. And I was very nervous when I was first asked because you're given 5 minutes to summarize everything that you've learned and done. And they have a little clock ticking down to show that you don't go over your time. And so I asked a couple people for advice, and probably the best advice I was given was, yes, talk about statistics, yes, talk about your research, but tell some stories. And so I spent a lot of time thinking, well, what story do I want to tell? And now that I've done a lot of qualitative interviews and worked in communities, I can actually give stories of very specific individuals. But at that time, I gave more of an analogy. I actually said, imagine there's a river and it's very rough waves, and in order to cross the river, in the past, people had to try to swim, or they had to find someone who had a boat. And sometimes people drowned, some people didn't make it. Only the strong and the wealthy and the influential were able to cross that river. But if the community decided to build a bridge, then everybody could get across when they wanted to, and you didn't have to be strong, or you didn't have to be connected or wealthy. And so I got a little laugh, and hopefully that visual stayed with them as I talked about bringing resources to low-income families. So I think the idea of telling stories and then making sure that my research was communicated in a way that even those who didn't understand it could understand. The other thing that's nice about giving congressional testimony is they put you in the congressional record. So in addition to the 5 minutes you have, you can also put pieces together that you want to be published. And you never know who's going to read them, but I mean, it's part of the official record of the United States government. So it was an honor, but it was also a time to think through what was really important to communicate and tell stories in a way that would help policymakers want to offer resources to low-income families and children, which was the point of the congressional testimony.